Hey, it's Hayden and Tyler again,
How's
back at it with some more questions. So I had a couple questions this week come up. One of them was about property management.
Right.
So today I'm surprising Tyler. So I told him to ask me some questions about this topic. So he's probably going to ask me some stuff, and I'll explain this person's question and answer a little more in depth, because we had a good thread. One of my good friends from high school is actually reaching out about property management. So his situation was, he has a rental property and he's wondering, is it lucrative or does it make sense to start managing properties?
Yeah.
So my answer was yes, it depends. I always recommend new investors to take on in-house property manager, manage their own rentals,
Right.
just so they can see, they can walk those tracks, they can figure out exactly the ins and outs of the systems before they hire it out. Because if you just go and it's your first rental and you hire a property manager, you're probably not going to hire the best property manager, because you don't know what to look for.
Right.
You don't know.
Would you recommend doing some property management on your own when you're first getting started, or is that just not something you want to deal with at all?
Oh, I definitely recommend doing it for a little bit. If it's a couple months, if it's maybe a year. I mean, I did it for almost 3 years for my own personal rentals. So I would say if you are a new investor, manage your own properties for a little bit, just so you can learn about it. And then if you're looking to scale and to grow a business, I'd say hire that. That's one of the first things you should hire it out. But don't hire it out straight from the get-go, because you might not know everything that you need to know. So that's a super important thing, is actually learning how to hire a property manager and what to look for. Because if you don't know how to screen tenants and you don't know how to take rent and you don't know all of these things, you're probably going to get a bad property manager. You're probably going to hire some random real estate agent that doesn't have the systems to be able to serve your clients the best, because your tenants, you're providing a service to your tenants. And my biggest pet peeve is slumlords. If I can create a revolution against slumlords, well, I'm all about it. There's nothing worse than having black mold or a leaky toilet or something, and the landlord won't fix it.
Right. Well, I mean, with property managers, wouldn't you say that building a good relationship with a property manager could provide more value than just making sure that your house is taken care of, your rental properties are covered, you're not getting bothered? Would they be able to maybe potentially give you information about some homes that they might be property managing that the owner is looking to sell in the future or whatever?
That's funny. It's funny you asked that, because that is exactly what I told my friend. I said, as you start to invest a little bit more, property managers are actually, this is how I use property managers, is we talk to various property managers, maybe not the ones we're using, but just across the area. And we say, hey, do you guys have any properties that are coming up for sale? Because guess who's the first person to know?
The property manager.
The property manager. They know that their landlord is tired. They know that they're moving or they're selling or whatever the issue is. The property managers are probably the first people to know. They probably know that their landlord that they're working for doesn't pay for repairs, doesn't take care of their property. So we go in there frequently and interface with them and figure out, hey, here's this guy. he's probably, if you ask if you gave him an offer, he'd probably accept it. So that's a great point you just brought up. I'm glad you did, because that's what I told my buddy is, if you're looking to get into real estate and you want to start a little property management gig where you have a portfolio of your own properties and other people's properties, now you're going to get in contact. You're going to be the go-to person for those landlords, and you're going to get some connections with handyman, plumbers, electricians. You're really going to build a framework.
I'm about to say, because property managers, they kind of know all the people to contact if you need help with anything regarding plumbing or roofing and all that. So
you're providing value to the tenants, the landlords, everybody. And then if you're an investor yourself, you can kind of, I wouldn't say cherry pick, but if a landlord is wanting to sell, you can come in there and say, hey, I'll buy it. Or you can find an end buyer and say, hey, like, I have an investor here that wants to buy your property, and you can kind of be middleman, and then you can carry over your property management from the first owner to the second owner and just carry that right over so you don't even lose any money.
Wow, nice. So when you hire a property manager, how much percentage are they taking on a single family compared to like a commercial, or how would that work? Or how's their payment structured?
Yeah, so here's how I'll break it down. Here's from what I've seen, this is my experience. Long-term rental rates, so long-term property management rates are about 8 to 10 to 12% maybe. I'd say
of
10
the net income that you're bringing.
The gross rent.
Gross rent.
If rent is $2,000, you're 10% of that. I'd say 10%, give or take a tiny bit, is about the standard.
Yeah.
You can get people less, you can get people more.
Well, does it go down if you are getting him to property manage 5 properties?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a good relationship with your property manager and you already have stuff set up, some property managers will take first month's rent or 50% of first month's rent to be able to actually place a tenant and do all that groundwork. And because that's a lot of work, is to screen the tenants, make the posting, do all this stuff. They don't necessarily want to work for $100 a month if they have to do 10, 15 hours of work, so they might take half month's rent as a fee. So that's another thing that you'll kind of see across the industry.
From what you've been saying, I mean, finding the right property manager could go a long way, like way farther than just managing your property. I mean, they take care of your property, they're going to give you insight on the market, they know the market, they know the rents are going up or down, or what you could possibly get for a home. I mean, they bring a lot of value when you find the right one, and they're willing to work with you, and you're willing to work with them. I think that could be a very what's the right word? Profitable or prospering relationship,
advantageous,
to have with
mutually
a
beneficial.
Yeah.
So I guess let me come back to that. But so we have long-term, then we have mid-term type style property managers, and we have short-term. So the way I classify that is long-term is anything greater than 30 days. So those are typically your 6-month or your year-long leases, and that's usually the least amount of work. Typically, it should be, because you place one tenant, and if you do it right, you don't really got to deal with them for a year. You just be kind of checking in.
Right.
The mid-term is 31-day leases, because you're kind of, in our area, we're skirting the short-term rental rules. So we'll have a furnished mid-term rental, where it's, and Zach actually, he has a few of these mid-term rentals where they're 31 days. So in Charleston, you can do a furnished rental on Airbnb, but it can't be less than 30 days because that's a short term. So those mid-term rates are typically 12 to 15%. That's a little higher.
Yeah, but that's definitely
a little bit higher. And then you get into the short-term rental, which is you're communicating back and forth with guests every day. You're going to the property, make sure that you're setting up cleaners. You're having a handyman come out there. You're restocking stuff. So it's much more hands-on than just writing a lease one time.
I got you.
So your short-term is like 20 to 22% of gross income, gross rent. So that's a lot more advantageous. You'll have a lot of people that will run an Airbnb for somebody, and they can make a good amount of money, especially if you're bringing in $5,000 to $10,000 a month on one Airbnb.
Right. I mean, it's up to them, really. I mean, the more customers you bring into your Airbnb, the more money your property manager gets paid, or is it a set price on
what
you're estimated you think you're going to net?
It probably depends. I'm sure different property managers do it differently, but from what I've seen is usually 20% of whatever that month would be. So you're probably doing a calculation every month and seeing how much it is. So if they do better, you get more money, but so does the owner. So it's kind of a win-win.
So I can say it's a win-win, right?
So if you're good at running a short-term rental, you're going to make more money, and so is the landlord that you're working for. So, and you're building all those skills. I mean, those are invaluable. So, I did say I was going to come back to. You said it's adding value to a property manager. They have like the hand on the market. They know the rates. Something that I've actually noticed is when I'm selling a property to an investor and they say, "Hey, I'm going to send my property manager out there."
Right.
I know they're dialed in, because if they're sending their property manager out to a property to look at it, they're probably good. The property manager probably is managing a bunch of properties. They probably know rents in the area. They could probably look at the property and say, "This is how much work it's going to need." So it just kind of speaks volumes if an investor's like, oh yeah, let me send my property manager out there. They probably got their systems dialed in. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to hear.
And that's just another point to make sure you get a good property manager. Like you might want to vet a few of them to really make sure that you got the right one, because from when we're talking, you can see how much value that a property manager can bring to you and how they can help you in several different ways. And I think that's pretty important when you really start getting into the game and acquiring a lot of properties.
Yeah, we can probably go into some tips on hiring property managers. I'd say just a quick little nugget here is you're looking for the best service for your tenants.
Right.
That's probably one of the biggest things, because a lot of times people look at, well, how does the property manager treat me? But if your tenant is upset, they're probably providing pretty bad service, and guess who that looks bad on? Looks bad on you.
Exactly.
So if you have a property manager that has a lot of systems that will treat you well, that's great. But if your tenant is struggling, they're not getting anything fixed, they can't reach out, the waters are broken, there's pipes busted, lights are out, whatever the situation may be, if they're having a bad experience, that looks bad on you. So I like to think about it. Well, some tips that I've actually heard is call as a tenant. So if you're using a property manager to list a property for you for rent, call that number and see if they pick up. See how
that's a good tip there.
See how your experience is as a future tenant. If you're calling and you can't get a hold of that property manager, the property manager's rude and it's like, oh no, whatever. 90% of people out there have dealt with crappy property managers. Most of them right now are VAs. They're overseas. So you'll get somebody from another country or it's some virtual texting thing. It's terrible. You can't ever get a good person on the phone nowadays. So if you can call your property manager up on your listing and they're like, hey, how can I help you? Yes, this is a 3-2 here in this area. It's a great neighborhood, whatever. And they're helpful, that's probably a pretty good sign. So if your guest and your client isn't having a good experience, you probably should relook at what's going on there.
I can agree there.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Just remember, we're always trying to provide value to everybody along every step of the way. Nothing worse than a slumlord that won't take care of their property and won't help out the tenant, because those are the people that keep us in business. Exactly. We have to take care of them, because landlords have a terrible name. If you've been on social media, landlords get reamed up and down.
Yeah.
But I've also had some really good landlords, and it's refreshing.
It makes a difference.
If you're renting in a quality product and you have a nice home that's clean, it's safe, it's updated, and your landlord takes care of you, you're thankful, because that's one of the necessary things in life, is to have a nice roof over your head. So that's what we like to try and provide. And I like to teach everybody that I come in contact with is don't be a slumlord. Don't be out here cutting corners, not fixing stuff. Go and pick up some broken fridge you got on the side of the road, or just go that extra mile, because if you build it into your cost on the front end, it's going to come back to you in the end. So
cool, I agree.
Yeah.
Sweet, man. Well, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
You got anything else? Or?
No, if you guys have any other questions about this or anything we missed, please let us know. I'd be happy to dive in a little deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all have a good one.
See ya.